Welcome to Tapped In with Tony. I am your host, Tony Bogan. Tonight, joining me is another Shaker grad. He is an Olmsted Falls lacrosse coach, former college player, former high school lacrosse player, and hockey player, Josh
Mhm.
Piepenburg. Josh, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, absolutely, Tony. Thanks for having me on, and it's great to continue the Shaker connection. It's always great to talk to other alums and spread the good word about our great alma mater.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Josh, we're going to first start with, well, we obviously kind of let the cat out of the bag. You're from Shaker Heights.
Hmm.
So, how did you get involved in lacrosse? And I believe you also played hockey too, correct?
I did, yeah. So hockey was actually my main sport. I played hockey from the time that I was, man, 6 or 7 years old. So hockey was originally my main sport. I played goalie in hockey. So, goalie in hockey, you stand around a lot. And my mom was like, she's actually the one that forced me to play lacrosse. And I started in seventh grade. And, I'll never forget. She's like, Josh, you're going to get fat if you just play hockey. I need you need to go out there and run around. So I ended up playing lacrosse. And funny enough, I played goalie my first 2 years of lacrosse. Anyways, so she wasn't too happy about that, but eventually I transitioned to playing attack. Um, Played all through, my high school career. Ended up getting an offer from Baldin-Wallace. Played there for 4 years, and then ended up in Olmsted Falls, right down the road. So, it's kind of crazy how you can make a whole career out of just your mother telling you to do something and actually listening to her.
They say mothers know best.
Yeah,
Yep.
right.
So,
I know.
yeah. So, talk to me about your careers in lacrosse for high school and in hockey. I believe you were part of the 2013 team that won the state championship.
Yeah, so that was actually so I actually stopped playing hockey that year, and the reason I
Oh,
did was because I had committed to playing lacrosse in college. So that was my main focus. I was doing a lot of summer leagues and or winter leagues, I should say. Um, and yeah, that was an unfortunate error on my part. Hindsight's 2020, but and I talk about that a lot to my players. When I talk about regrets. And, the biggest thing that I regret about stopping playing isn't that, we won a state championship that year. It's that I missed out on hanging out with the guys that I'd hung out with for 3, 4 years. Those are some of my best friends. And I really regret not having that final year with them to just be around that team. Because it was, they were not only skilled at hockey, but they're also great guys. And, that's one of my biggest regrets is, I could care less about the state championship. I care more about the fact that I didn't get to play with them. So,
gotcha.
but it's a it's a lesson, and it's something that I try to convey on to my players. And I guess fortunately for me, state championships work their way around, and I did eventually get my own ring, but it is what it is. So yeah, that's at least the kind of the summary of my hockey career.
Yep. And 10 years too. 10
Yeah,
years.
I know, it's gone by quick. Starting to feel starting to feel a little old, but I guess age is just a number, right? So you try to stay as young as possible.
Oh yeah, and I remember that team, like having seen a couple games my senior year of high school. I believe half, if not more, of that team was freshmen.
Hmm. Yeah, and they were talented. It was just a great group of guys, and I still try to keep in touch with a couple of them, but yeah, that was a great team, and I really miss all those guys.
Gotcha. And talk about lacrosse, especially your high school career when it came to lacrosse. How was it like being part of that program throughout the your high school career?
Yeah, so if Shaker hockey was the pinnacle of athletics at that time, in, 2010 to 2013. Lacrosse was kind of the bottom of the barrel. Actually, I remember my freshman and sophomore year. I think the Shakerite did a report on just how historically bad we had been for the past 5 6 years. I mean, winning 1 2 3 games every year. um, and part of that was we played some of the best teams in the area. The St. Ed, St. Ignatius, US were always on our schedule. A couple of them would go on to win state championships. Hudson was another great program that would win a state championship during my tenure. But it was really cool to see. At least I always felt like my class kind of was part of the turning the page process. So I think about myself, Colin Brady, Aaron Harris, uh, Chris Fletcher, Eric Starron. There's so many great guys that I could name that were really part of turning that program around, and they've had some great success since. I follow very closely, um, and just talking about my career. I played attack. I'm definitely not going to claim to be the best Shaker attackman in history. It definitely doesn't belong to me. I'd actually give a shout out to the current Shaker head lacrosse coach, Will Talbot. He's probably one of the greatest attackmen in our history. But it was just a great group of guys, and we were scrappy. We knew what it took, and we didn't always have the best record, but we definitely we had a winning record my senior year, and we went toe to toe with some of the best in the northeastern Ohio area. And I was lucky enough that the Baldin-Wallace coach observed me play and saw enough good things that he gave me an offer. So went over to BW, played there for 4 years. Had a couple injuries, unfortunately, which looking back now, it gave me a lot of opportunities to watch the game and learn the game, which translated well to coaching. But at the time, I definitely wish I had played a little bit more. Um, but yeah, so I ended up doing that, and um, after that, one of my good friends actually, who was a defender on that Baldwin-Wallace team, he he was the head coach of Olmsted Falls at the time. He was like, "Hey, do you want to come help out?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I spent a year as the assistant, and due to his job requirements, he's like, "Hey, I can't do this full time." It's like, well, hell, let's switch. So we ended up switching positions. So now I'm the head coach. He's the assistant coach, and well, I guess it speaks for itself. So here we are.
Absolutely. That 2013 class was definitely really talented, to say the
Hmm.
least. Like, you guys go from having 1 to 2 wins, even though you guys are playing in some of the best programs in the state, like you said, to
Hmm.
finishing over 500. The baseball team did well.
Hmm.
Hockey, as we talked about, won states. Terry Rozier was still going to Shaker, and
Yeah.
this was before his meteoric rise. And even the football team, like the year after you graduated, went 8-2.
Yeah, and I want to give a shout out to the girls field hockey team. I believe they won a state championship in 2014 or 2015, I think it was. So
Yeah,
those were a couple great years. Well, probably a 5 6 year stretch of some pretty great athletics, and I think that standards continued at Shaker, which is great to see. Well, absolutely love to see it.
absolutely, because a lot of people know Shakers being one of the top academic schools in the
Hmm.
state, and when you add athletics to it, that just makes it all the more better.
Absolutely, and I still live in Shaker Heights. So I get to see all the people go around here, and I just love the community. I mean, it's a great community. It's a great place to grow up. It's a great place to go to school, and I really personally, I think the demographics of the school definitely make for a better life experience. You learn from a lot of different people who have a lot of different backgrounds, and I think it really provides a great learning environment for a young person to grow up in.
Absolutely, as someone who also graduated from Shaker, I can attest to that
Mhm.
as well. And even get staying in Ravenna, I stay in Ravenna now, so it's a little
Mhm.
bit of a stretch. I still like to go up to Shaker and
Mhm.
cover a game or two whenever I can, just because I still know some of those people from the past. I still want to go back to my alma mater and show that support.
Absolutely, and hey, the football team's looking pretty good this year too. So hopefully,
Absolutely.
hopefully they have some great success upcoming. And it's been great to see that they're back into a good standing and getting good wins and sending kids off to college. And
Oh yeah,
it's great to see. So I
and
couldn't
they
be
have
more excited.
lights too. So
Absolutely, and I tell all my friends, hey, I'm cheering for you guys 364 days a year, and the one day that I'm not is when I have to play you guys. So I always try to hype up the Shaker athletics, and The only time I don't is when I'm trying to beat them. So
Respect, respect. And having played play lacrosse in college, how does the game pace differ between playing on the college level as opposed to the high school?
yeah, so I actually just kind of talked to some of my players about this yesterday. We kind of had a day to sit down and watch film, and I think the biggest thing is that at the collegiate level, everyone is, the best athlete from their high school. So in the high school level, you can kind of get away with just out athleting other teams. If you've got a couple kids that are, D1 level talent, you'll go pretty far. I don't want to say schematics and schemes and plays don't matter at all, but I don't believe that they matter as much, and until you get to really high levels of competition, whether that be the state regional finals, state semifinals, state finals. That's when schematics really come into play. But during a regular season, for the most part, you can usually get away with just having better athletes. At the collegiate level, everyone's a great athlete. That's when schematics come into, that's when they really kick into high gear. And having schemes, having good, offensive, defensive schemes, having intelligent players really, really makes a difference. And that varies obviously from division to division. So the Division 1 level is going to be that much quicker than the Division 3 level, but you still see that that transition of mental fortitude and just commitment to your systems.
And how was it like balancing that time as a student athlete? I know your first couple years before you said that you did have injuries and you did
Mhm.
score a couple times in your first couple of years of your career.
Yeah, yeah. It was tough. I think going, a college workload can be tough at for anyone. And I think I made it a little bit more difficult on myself. My undergrad major was actually chemistry, so not an easy not an easy major to go into. So I definitely had to commit a little bit more time to studying, especially because it didn't come easy to me either. So I definitely had to spend a lot more time, in the study halls, in the library, making sure that I'm passing my classes to be eligible to play. So it wasn't easy, but it establishes good rhythms for you that have definitely paid off for me later in life. And now I feel like I've seen it all, I've done it all, and it's definitely paid off now. But at the time, it was definitely not fun.
I imagine, like having to go to games. Sometimes you guys do go out of state. I know
Hmm.
OAC doesn't really go out of state too much, but you will have your 2.5, 3 hour trips.
Hmm.
Then you got to make sure you're on top of your classes. And I don't know whereas will different with lacrosse as opposed to football, but sometimes you got to get up early in the morning, watch film, do practice, go
Hmm.
to class, and so on.
Yeah. Yep, the same thing. I think a daily schedule, especially like early in the season, would be a 6 a.m. practice. Get done with practice at around. If you had an 8 a.m. class, you'd get out of practice at 7:30. Quick shower, run on over to whatever class you had at 8 a.m. Pretty much go until my class would usually end around 1. Um, then you'd have a lift after that, and and then, yeah, sometimes there would be 2 days and you'd have to go back to practice, or other times, you'd finally be done around 3, 4 o'clock, and, that it can definitely make for a long day because then you have to start studying. So, it, it definitely weighs on you, but, that's just part of the commitment to that's kind of just what you accept when you wanna play college athletics. So, it was definitely a struggle at first, but once you get in the rhythm of it, it kinda just, everything works out.
Gotcha. And having played in the OAC, did Baldin-Wallace ever make the tournament or anything like
W
that?
so for the OAC tournament, yes. So we made it my sophomore, junior, and senior year. Um, and pretty much every year since then, Baldwin Wallace has had a pretty great track record of making the OAC tournament and actually winning like the regular season OAC conference. We've definitely had some struggles in the championship, OAC championship.
Mhm.
John Carroll had our number for honestly almost the last 6, 7 years. And hats off to them. They've got a great program. Um, they just seem to have our number, unfortunately. And the nice thing is, or the cool thing is, that the OAC does get an automatic bid to the Division III national championship, which is pretty cool. So you're definitely playing for something greater. Um, it's just been there are some great Division III lacrosse programs out there, and so the OAC hasn't represented itself too well. But yeah, we definitely had our fair shots at the title, and unfortunately just couldn't get it all together in time. And that happens, and I've seen it in my own coaching careers. Once you get to the playoffs, it's a whole different beast.
Absolutely. You throw all the records out the window. Whether
Hmm.
you win 19 games, whether you win 5 games, all the records get thrown out the window once the playoffs begin.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And that just makes it tough. So it is what it is, but hats off to JCUs, begrudgingly, as I like to admit.
Hey, I know, I understand that rivalry, but John Carroll will be leaving after next year, so
Hmm.
they'll be joining the
Yeah,
NCAC, I believe.
yeah, no, and yeah, it's certainly an interesting move for them. I understand why they're doing it, but it was definitely nice to have that John Carroll BW Mount rivalry, but fortunately they don't want to partake anymore. So hey, hats off to them. I understand there's other things that go on to dictate those moves. So
Yep. And transitioning after your post college career, did you immediately become an assistant in Olmsted Falls after graduation, or how'd that work?
yeah, pretty much. I mean, I graduated in 2017, and then pretty much spring of 2018, I was back coaching. So it goes by quick, and I miss the sport, and I haven't known a spring without lacrosse in the past, I want to say 15 years. So, it was just a natural fit. And, I never really thought that I would end up being a head coach or, even an assistant coach, but just worked out that way, and happened to be pretty decent at it. So the,
When you did take over, I believe you took over as head coach after the COVID pandemic, correct?
so I had 1 year prior to that. And
Mm.
then the COVID was going to be like my first true, you know, that was gonna be my first true year, and then unfortunately COVID happened, and we didn't have a season. So yeah, so I had 1 year prior to that, and then pretty much I went from year one to a year off, and then year two came about um, as in 2021, I believe. So yeah, technically I've been the coach for a pretty decent amount of time, but I did lose a year in there.
Gotcha. And talk about your building up that program to the point where you guys won the state championship last season.
Yeah, you know, Olmsted Falls, they've got a great youth program, and that's where it starts. Youth sports dictate how the varsity and JV teams do. They got a great program, a lot of hardworking, committed parents. I can't praise them enough. And they really made my job a lot easier. And even my first year, I think about all those guys had some great athletes, and they've got just they really bought into the system. And I think establishing our culture of playing bulldog lacrosse, playing for 48 minutes, playing hard nosed physical lacrosse, playing intelligent lacrosse, just establishing that year one, and having your captains and sophomore or captains and juniors and seniors reinforce that kind of identity. And just at this point it kind of just passes itself down. It's turned into a tradition of how we want to play, and it's made my job a lot easier because these kids come in and they already know my expectations. They already know what's expected of them and how hard they're going to have to work. And I think the state championship is really earned by every single class that comes before them, because they helped implant those those attributes in the guys that actually won it. Um, and it really, I always lament the COVID year, because that team was actually going to be very, very good. The seniors that graduated last year, that would have been their freshman year, and a lot of them would have gotten playing time, and actually a lot of their older brothers were on that team.
Mm,
So that unfortunately that year was taken from us, but that team was also going to be very, very good. But yeah, I mean, we got lucky that we moved down to Division Two, which is based on school size. So it had to happen. Um, but it just happened at the right time for us. We had a great group of guys who were used to playing Division One talents, and they were just ready to go.
oh yeah, and especially like with Olmsted Falls, like having been in videography for Keon Sports, which will be 5 years tomorrow as of this
Congrats.
recording. Thank you. Olmsted Falls is a great and very supportive community when it
Hmm.
comes to athletics.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
100%.
Yes, so I'm sure as the seasons went on, obviously with football and basketball, football having made it, or basketball having made to the regionals one year,
Hmm.
having with the success of the boys lacrosse team, you definitely have a lot of that support. Student sections showing out in numbers.
Yeah, 100%. And they really the school really comes out to support, and it's just been awesome to see. And lacrosse is such a growing sport that it's really cool for kids that have never seen it before to come out and they're like, "Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. All these games are super exciting." And we're like, "Yeah, it's a pretty fun sport to watch. You get a little bit of everything, a little bit of the excitement of basketball, a little bit of the hitting of football and hockey, and just a little bit of the general athleticism of soccer, or endurance rather. So it's just a great sport that's quickly growing across the country, and we're just excited that we could bring it to Olmsted Falls and actually have some success. And it definitely wasn't easy. I actually started out my career 0-5, and parents and players could have turned on me at that point, and that would have been all she wrote. But they stuck with it, and super proud of what we accomplished. But it's back to work now.
Yep. Trust the process, celebrate the wins, and just keep moving forward, especially probably got the target on your back going into the new year.
Yep, you're absolutely right. And that's something that we've kind of talked about is that, we're going to get every team's best game this year. And that's the honor and the luxury of being good is that you get the absolute best out of your opponent every single game. And honestly, I wouldn't want to have it any other way. If we want to establish ourselves as one of the dominant programs in the state of Ohio, um, we have to play the best. So we've got a good schedule lined up this year. We play a lot of Northeastern Ohio teams, obviously, because traveling to Columbus can be difficult. But Columbus is a hotbed of lacrosse. They run the state essentially. I mean, 3 of the 4 state championships in lacrosse between boys and girls that were won last season were by Columbus teams. Actually, I think I believe it was 3 of the 4. So we were super proud to do it for the Cleveland area, and that's something that we want to push the other Northeastern Ohio teams to be that much better, and kind of turns into a whole Cleveland versus Columbus thing, and I love it honestly.
Yeah. So hopefully it's like that for basketball too and football because there are a lot of very talented teams for football, basketball in Columbus area.
Yeah, absolutely, and that it's just the two big metropolitan areas, and you can include Cincinnati in there too. Those 3 big areas really try to outplay each other, and it's kind of a fun interstate rivalry that we all get to enjoy and see who can bring the best talent to the table.
Exactly. And talk a little bit more about the rise of lacrosse. I believe you got the Major League Lacrosse is a thing
Hmm.
now. I don't know if there's a franchise in Ohio, but I know probably some players have gone on to play professionally, even though
Hmm.
some players have gone on, like yourself, who play in college and then coach.
Hmm.
So talk about that rise of it as a sport in general.
Yeah, I mean, even if you just start at like the high school and middle school level, you're seeing a ton of programs just pop up. Like, I mean, you can think about Olmsted Falls. We weren't a varsity program until 2017. So it's
Wow.
really been it's really been 7 years since we turned into a varsity program, and you're seeing them pop up all over the place, especially on the west side. I think the east side has long had, multiple programs. The most schools on the east side have a lacrosse team for the most part, but it's really spreading to the west side now too, and the SWC conference as well. I know North Ridgeville just got a team, or at least a club team. Aurora just brought on a team. So a couple of these smaller high schools are popping up lacrosse programs, and it's really cool to see. Um, just because it's a great spring sport for, you get your football players, you get your basketball players. They can all, benefit from the, just general athleticism that's required. There's the you know, off ball picks, and general defensive and offensive movement of basketball. There's the physicality of football, um, you know, cutting through holes, that really translates well. And I think that those sports really mesh together, and I think it's really smart for schools to pop them up because it's just going to make your other teams better. And collegiate coaches like multi-sport athletes. So I think that's part of the rise. But yeah, the professional lacrosse, Premier Lacrosse League is kind of the dominant league now. Unfortunately, they took the Ohio team away um, during a merger. Um, so that was kind of a bummer, but hopefully they bring it back because, like I've been saying, Ohio is actually a really underrated lacrosse area. So hoping that they bring it back here soon, but it's just a great game. I think that's the most important reason why it's growing so quickly is it's a lot of fun. It was originated by the Native Americans. So it really is, North America's game. It's the national sport of Canada.
Mhm.
Um, and it really has, a layer of spirituality to it. And I think that's something that people that don't play the sport don't understand. But the Native Americans actually called it the medicine game, and they used it as an alternative to actually waging war with one another.
Mhm.
Um, so they'd come together and have a lacrosse game, and that would settle all their disputes and get all the angst and aggression out of their warriors. And some people may have gotten hit a little harder too back then, but now we've kind of domesticated it into a sport that everyone can kind of love. And I've loved seeing the response nationwide of people, bringing on lacrosse teams, and I sure hope it continues. And I'm going to do my absolute best to continue the growth as well.
Just like baseball, it's as American as apple pie.
Yeah, exactly. And that's those two. It's unfortunate they compete for spring athletes, but they really do kind of go hand in hand as well.
Gotcha. And Josh, thank you for coming on and giving your take on your career as a high school and college player. And thanks for coming on the show, man. And we really appreciate your take.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tony. You have a great one now.
And make sure to catch Tapped In with Tony, which will be on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. And you can follow me on Twitter at tbogues2010. And for those of you tuning in, thank you guys for tuning in and have a good night.